His name is Mike Florio, and he's back here on the Rich Eisen Show with Pro Football Talk and so much more. How are you, Mike?
Hey, Rich. Doing great, buddy. How are you?
I'm great. So, boy, did you have me at hello with that post a couple days ago. Walk me through your reporting on the Patriots and Mac Jones and the availability of Mac Jones. What do you got for me there?
You know, it's funny. For a lot of people, it's the splash of cold water that wakes them up to the existence of a problem. For a lot of us, it's just the next logical step in what has been dysfunction that has reigned for a year now for the Patriots and Mac Jones. Mac Jones, first-round pick in 2021, has a rookie year with Josh McDaniels as his offensive coordinator, makes it to the Pro Bowl, makes it to the playoffs, never mind the fact they lost by 30 to the Bills. They still made it to the playoffs, something that they've only done once post-Tom Brady. Then this year, McDaniels out, and in comes the Frankenstein monster of a couple of failed former head coaches who weren't offensive coaches who take over the offense with Matt Patricia, offensive line coach ostensibly, offensive coordinator de facto. Joe Judge, a name who doesn't get mentioned enough in this concoction of toxic offensive stew, is the quarterback's coach when he had never been a quarterback's coach, when he had been a special teams coordinator. And my understanding is people were surprised when Joe Judge came back in that job. Like, okay, he's coming back, he's going to work with special teams. Nope, he's going to be the quarterback's coach. So Mac Jones is the one who saw what it was like with McDaniels, saw what it was like with Patricia and Judge, and he wasn't happy about it. And so different than Tom Brady, who internalized a lot of his complaints as it related to Bill Belichick. Mac Jones pushed back. Mac Jones didn't like what happened. Mac Jones was talking privately. It was getting back to Belichick. One thing Chris Sims said earlier this week, Mac Jones was calling Alabama for help on how to better run an offense that Patricia and Judge were running into the ground. And Belichick's had two occasions so far this offseason where he's been asked point blank about Mac Jones being the starter. End of season, he said he's proven he can play in this league, not what are you talking about, he's my starter. And then last week at the league meetings, he made it clear there's a competition between Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. So this next step, and what happens is, and we've been doing this 22 years now, 23 years, however long it's been, it'll be, I don't even like to think about it, it's been so long. But when you know people throughout the league, when you talk to people throughout the league, sometimes just writing about or talking about a topic will attract more information on a story that you further develop, and that's what happened. We wrote about earlier this week the dysfunction arising from Mac Jones going outside the building, calling Alabama, getting some help with the offense, and that's when I tripped. I wasn't looking for it. I tripped over this notion that Bill Belichick was talking to other teams about the possibility of moving Mac Jones earlier this offseason. Doesn't mean they're going to do it. Doesn't mean he was even looking to do it. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to send a message to Mac Jones, like, hey, if you think you're so great, we'll see if one of these other teams wants you. Oh, they don't. So just shut up and get back to work. Regardless, there's clear tension. There's dysfunction. It's almost Shakespearean when you throw in the fact that Robert Kraft put Bill Belichick on the hot seat last week, and we go forward with the Patriots, basically the fourth best team in their own division.
Well, lots right there. Let me pull on a few of those strings. So when you spoke to who are the folks filling you in on this subject matter, any idea what Belichick's plan was once Jones was offloaded? If he did in fact get the deal that he would be looking for, was he looking for something specifically? What details surround either the offer and then the plan after, if it was successful?
Don't know specifically what it would have been. They've got Bailey Zappi, who's already been flagged by Belichick as a guy who will have a chance to play this year. That's what he said last week. Both will have a chance to play. And you could interpret that as, is he going to go two quarterbacks like we thought he was starting to do in that Bears game? Remember that? They went back and forth. It was Mac, it was Bailey, whatever, and they were going to work. I think they were going to work, Mac in more. I can't remember how it ultimately played out, but both guys played, and we were thinking, is this the end game here? We're going to see both like a college coach will often do. So Zappi's the obvious candidate, but then if you make the move early enough in the off season, you have the opportunity to bring back a Jimmy Garoppolo if that's what you were thinking of doing. This is all something that I would assume happened before the dust settled on the musical chairs as it relates to quarterbacks in free agency, and the seats were filled and plans were made, and maybe there's a a back end to this after the draft if teams eyeing quarterbacks in round one, either openly or secretly, don't get who they want. But, yeah, I think that the sooner you do it, the sooner you can explore your other options to replace Mac Jones, whether it's Bailey Zappi or whether it's somebody who's currently not on the team.
And then, Mike Florio, you said moments ago when Bob Kraft put Bill Belichick on the hot seat. What makes you think that?
Well, Bill Belichick has had 4 seasons with no playoff wins since they won Super Bowl 53. And last year at the league meetings, Robert Kraft expressed his disapproval and disappointment with the fact that they hadn't won a playoff game in 3 years. So this year when he met with reporters, at one point he was asked this question. And I'm paraphrasing, but I'm going to try to get it as close to verbatim as I can. You've had 2 out of 3 losing seasons. Can Bill Belichick survive another one, or will he be here to catch and surpass Don Shula for the all-time wins record? Robert Kraft's response wasn't, yes, he'll be here. He waded into this notion that, well, we want our players to accumulate great statistics, but ultimately we're here to win football games, and I want to get back to the playoffs. And it felt to me like one of those situations where anything other than yes is no. And the moment I heard it, said, oh, well, playoffs are bust for Bill Belichick this year. Now, would Robert Kraft ultimately do it, or would he just think about doing it? I don't know, but this is unprecedented territory. Now, we had the Steelers struggle at times in the post-4 Super Bowl championship years of Chuck Noll. We had the Cowboys who weren't the Cowboys in the 80s that they'd been in the 70s, and Tom Landry was still there until Jerry Jones bought the team. But this is the greatest run we've seen in the free agency era, the 6 championships, but now mediocrity. And this year could be as bad as it's been, Rich. When you consider, and you know well as a Jets fan, how the Patriots ran roughshod over that division for years, and how in many respects that contributed to this run of AFC championship game every year. When you go 6-0, 5-1, whatever against your division, and you rule that division, you get the 1 seed or the 2 seed, you win a divisional round game, and boom, you're in the championship like that. It's like clockwork, and it makes it easier to get to Super Bowls and win them if you're in the AFC championship game every damn year. So now we're at the back end of this where they haven't made it to the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. They've had losing records 2 of the last 3 years. How long of a grace period does Bill Belichick have after winning 6 Super Bowls in today's NFL? And I think that's what Robert Kraft's wrestling with.
And then just again, I don't know, we've both been around it long enough, Mike, that sometimes things are said publicly as a message to be sent to fans or messages to be sent within their own house and organization. And some things are just said just because it's said off the top of someone's head. Robert Kraft letting it be known that Meek Mill said, hey, Lamar wants to play for you, and just putting it out there. Is that, from what you gather or hear, a message to Bill, hey, I'd sign that check, I'd stroke that check if you're interested in getting him? Or is it to just tell the fans in New England, hey, we kick the tires, through Meek Mill? I don't know. Like, I don't know what that really accomplishes, other than just maybe, hey, this is a fun thing for me to say into a microphone and just let it be known. That was wild, is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I think the general message was, and it's something that he repeated several times last week, Bill makes the decisions.
Right.
Bill makes the decisions. And if there's a mess, it's on him, not me. If we get to a point where what we're doing isn't sustainable, it's not my fault, it's his fault, blame him. Just like last year with what Kraft called a failed experiment, and he didn't like what happened. And Matt Patricia got put in a bad spot last year. How can you expect this guy to become an offensive coach after years and years and years of being a defensive coach? He made it clear he did not like the decision Bill Belichick made. So they're Bill's decisions that he will be evaluated based on those decisions. He didn't say that, but that was the vibe. Now, as it relates to Lamar Jackson, something else Kraft said last week to reporters made me think that he would not be inclined to do it, because the one thing that we never talk about when we talk about Lamar Jackson, because we get caught up, as we should, in the fully guaranteed contract that Deshaun Watson got last year, $230 million, 5 years, fully guaranteed. That has gotten into Lamar Jackson's head, and he can't get it out. Well, the other side of it is everything the Browns gave up to get in position where they could pay Deshaun Watson. 3 first-round picks plus. And Kraft talked specifically about the importance of draft picks, the value of draft picks. Draft picks allow you to go out and get players who can become key players for your organization at a very low cost relative to what it's going to cost you to get Lamar Jackson. So not only are you giving a huge piece of your salary cap to Lamar Jackson for years into the future, you are forfeiting the ability to get scratch-off lottery tickets, which is what draft picks are. You scratch off a winner or you scratch off a loser, but the cost of that ticket is low. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But if you have enough of them, you're going to have guys that work out. And if you give up a bunch of them, somebody else is going to have those lottery tickets. And I think that's important to Kraft. So I don't think he would want to do it. But his message is it's Bill's decision.
Were you taken aback? Taken aback strong. Did any spidey sense go off yesterday with the Ravens press conference 3 weeks and 1 day before a draft to say, let's have a draft press conference, even though we're admitting the board isn't set and we're not answering any questions about Lamar Jackson? Because I'm looking around at my screen, my Twitter screen, the NFL Network feed. I don't see any other teams having a draft press conference 3 weeks and 1 day before the draft. I mean, they will all have one, I think. But was there what was that about yesterday?
You know, that's a great point on the timing. They are required to have one. I confirmed that today. So it wasn't something that a team could just pass on. I assume that whatever the window is to have it, that was probably the earliest day or damn close to it. Because, you go and you answer a bunch of general vague questions about what your draft plans are, and I think people who have done this years and years know how to say things without saying things. But the idea that they wouldn't answer the questions about Lamar Jackson, I mean, my reaction today was, hey, first of all, you should welcome being able to rattle off your same old talking points, because every Lamar Jackson question you get is one less question you get about your draft board, one less opportunity to say something that may accidentally tip your hand. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you just rattle off your same old position about Lamar Jackson? We want him to be here over the long term. We would like to work out a long-term deal. If we can't do that by July 17 and we are restricted to a one-year deal, we will do our best to work out a one-year deal, and we'll do it all again next year. We want him to be our quarterback indefinitely into the future. What's so hard about that? I wonder whether they were concerned that they'd be asked a question they don't want to answer. And, Rich, the question I'd want to ask is this. Mm-hmm. When Lamar Jackson told you he wanted to be traded, do you believe that's a negotiating ploy, or is it Lamar Jackson saying, I'm done with you? Specifically, Ravens, has Lamar Jackson told you, I'm never playing for you again? That would be pretty important information to know. Now, they could dance around that as well, but depending upon how they answer it, they may be inviting Lamar Jackson to go to Twitter and state his position with a couple of emojis on the back end, as he's wont to do. So, to me, that's the only question. That's the first question, and maybe there's others, but that's the biggest question that I wouldn't want to answer if I'm the Ravens, if the answer is, yeah, you know what, when he asked to be traded, he made it damn clear to us he's done with playing here and he wants to play somewhere else.
Yeah, I just found it interesting. Maybe they just wanted to have it early because they know if they have to have it close to the draft and Lamar still hasn't been signed to an offer sheet, that there would be more questions they didn't want to have. I just found it wild that out of the blue, the Ravens are. I'm sitting here at work and my coordinating producer gets in my ear saying Eric DeCosta's talking. I'm like, really? And I looked up at the screen. I'm like, how many other teams are doing this today? Oh, none of them. It's really, that one just sort of set off an alarm bell. I don't know. And
it could be that they just wanted to get it done now
and done.
So they have nothing more that they have to say.
Right.
And Lamar can tweet whatever he wants to tweet over the next 3 weeks, and they won't be in a position where they have to react to it on the record. So I who knows what's going to happen over the next 3 weeks. And I personally think, Rich, nothing's going to happen. I think we are in a cycle where we see if the Colts, for example, get a quarterback they like at number 4, and if they don't, maybe they make a run at Lamar. Because you can still go after him with an offer sheet after the 2023 draft. The compensation becomes, if the Ravens don't match the offer sheet, 2024 and 2025 first-round picks. And there may be other teams out there that are secretly lurking for a quarterback, like the Chiefs were 6 years ago with Patrick Mahomes. Nobody knew that they wanted Patrick Mahomes. So there may be teams out there saying, boy, we'd really like to get this guy. oh, crap, we didn't get him. Well, what can we do now? Let's go get Lamar Jackson. And it's kind of apples and oranges, but it's not, because if you're looking to upgrade your quarterback position, you're looking to upgrade your quarterback position. If you don't do it through the draft, you look at your other avenues. So I don't think anything's going to happen with Jackson and the Ravens and any other teams until after the draft. And then after the draft, who knows? Maybe the Ravens come out of it with a replacement for Lamar Jackson in round one. I mean, we didn't expect them to draft Jackson the year that they did when Joe Flacco was still their starter. So there's a lot that can still happen after the draft, but between now and the draft, I think the only thing that happens is Lamar Jackson starts agitating a little more loudly to get out of Baltimore if that's truly what he wants to do.
Last one for you, Mike Florio, before I send you onto your Good Thursday. So 3 weeks from tonight, first round of the NFL draft in Kansas City, which team would you peg as the one to trade up or trade back into the first round of the NFL draft for a quarterback as we sit here right now? What do you think?
Well, your colleague Daniel Jeremiah was making the point earlier this week that the Titans are a team he's heard could go from 11 to 3, and I assume that's the Anthony Richardson spot. If we assume that the Panthers go C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young and the Texans go with the other of the two, then number 3 where the Cardinals are, that's the Anthony Richardson spot. So that would be fascinating if the Titans would do that. It sets up kind of like an Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes thing in Tennessee. But you know, we don't know, and I think that any team, there are in my mind 6 teams with clear, obvious franchise quarterbacks, and we can't do any better than what we have: Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Chargers, Bengals, Jaguars. And the other 26 teams, in my mind, can still go from where they are to superstar. And the thing about Anthony Richardson, when Chris Sims did his quarterback rankings, he's got Richardson at number 3, but he acknowledges this is the guy who could be the superstar. So if you're looking to upgrade to the potential superstar and you believe it, I'd say any of those other teams could potentially try to get the number 3 to get Anthony Richardson before the Colts have a shot at him.
There's also Hendon Hooker, and a team that doesn't need a quarterback now, but would be happy to have a 5th year of control on his contract now and play for the future, as opposed to getting a top player in the bottom third of the NFL draft, first round for their team. Which one do you think would be that team? Like who would fit that bill? A lot of folks are saying the Vikings right now, and with Cousins sitting there. What do you think on that front?
Oh, and the Vikings. Look, a couple of years ago, they were. I had heard, and I believe that they were licking their chops for Justin Fields to slip to them. They got leapfrogged by the Bears. So, you know, they're a team that understands, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, their GM now, at the time Rick Spielman was the GM when they were thinking about Justin Fields, but the idea that they don't have a Josh Allen, they don't have a Patrick Mahomes, and they understand that, and he admitted that publicly. Kirk Cousins has gotten them to a certain level, and he can't get them any farther than that. So they would be a team that I would watch, potentially, to groom a guy with one more year for Kirk Cousins. What about the Ravens, really, at 22? And if Hooker just happens to be there, and you know, yesterday DeCosta didn't rule out taking a quarterback. He didn't rule it in either. What he said was pretty obvious, even though it made a headline. But you know, any of those 26, the question is, how badly do we want to take our shot here? Are we concerned that he's coming off a torn ACL? Are we concerned that he's 25? I mean, for quarterbacks, who cares? For a running back, maybe I'd be worried. For a quarterback, he's going to play 15 years anyway if he's good. So what if he's 25 and not 21? So I think that as we get closer to the draft, I think people are going to wake up to, and you know, we hear, the guys rising up the boards. A lot of times it's the media is finally becoming aware of what the teams thought all along, because the teams have always viewed a guy a certain way. And I know Sims had a real strong evaluation of Hendon Hooker as well. And again, if you don't have a franchise quarterback, you should be looking for one, and you should be willing to take your chances because they're so hard to find, and you never know what they're going to be until you get them into the NFL.
All right, and I lied. Throw a dart at a board. Give me the time between now and the draft. The Jets and the Packers make this Rodgers trade. We know they got to make, because
before round 2 starts, April 28th. Because I think it's going to come down to this. I think it's one of the two second-round picks. The Jets have this year.
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about Thursday. It's Friday night. One of those 2 second-round picks. And then the question is, what's the compensation for 2024 What's the formula based on what the Jets or Aaron Rodgers will do in 23? Is it a first-round pick? Is that the max? What does it take to get the first-round pick, second-round pick, third-round pick, et cetera? Kind of like the formula they had for Brett Favre in the 2009 draft. And then the last key sticking point, what protection do the Jets have for 25 in the event that Rodgers doesn't play in 24? He goes into the dark room, he takes a sip of ayahuasca, he decides I retire after 1 year with the Jets. Is there protection in 25 for a draft pick to come back from Green Bay to New York? Those are the two sticking points. The Packers have come off their insistence on the 13th overall pick. So I think it gets done before the picks are made. And the very latest it gets done is when those two back-to-back second-round picks are on the clock for the Jets, because they've now got consecutive second-round picks due to the Elijah Moore trade to the Browns.
Wow. I would sign for that. That means I'm on live television on Friday night counting it down. I mean, I would sign for that, but I don't understand why that's got to be 12:01. I mean, if you're already off of the first round selection, just do it already.
But we know how this works, and in any
just in case they blink, is that what it is?
Rich, nobody wants to go to their bottom line until the last possible minute, and
right.
The last possible minute is when that second round pick this year that the Packers are getting from the Jets is being used. That's the last minute. So that last move, it's because if you move now, the other side can say, we'll wait, because they know they can wait. So don't move prematurely, because once you move, it's hard to put it back. So you wait. It's the two circles of the Venn diagram. You wait to make them kiss at the last possible moment when the chariot's turning into a pumpkin, and I think that's why there's a chance you will be on the air when this happens.
Okay, and so then throw a dart. Does Rodgers show up on McAfee before the draft? What do you think? Or he's under the radar, or he stays. He's clearly staying off of everything. He hasn't said a word since he appeared on that on Pat's show a couple of weeks ago. What do you think?
Yeah, and we're now 3 weeks and a day since he did, and
right.
We're closer to the draft than we were than when he did it, and he complained that the Packers are dragging their feet. I will say at this point he won't. I think at this point he wants to see what happens at the draft. And I still think he wants to play for the Jets, but I don't think he said the word intention accidentally. It's my intention to play for the Jets. How many times have we heard teams say we have no intent to trade a certain player, and then they trade him? Intention is a safe harbor to change your mind. It's my intention to play for the Jets, and intentions can change. There's no reason to think it will, but I think he waits and sees who's reasonable, who's unreasonable, can they get a deal done by the time this draft ends. And then if they don't, look, I don't know, training camp at that point is the witching hour for getting a deal done, because he knows the offense. He really doesn't need to be there, and he may not want to be there.
I don't know. Intention might actually mean he wants to do it. For instance, I have intention of buying Father of Mine, your book, your novel. How does that sound?
Well, I have intention of giving you a free copy.
No. I don't want that. I don't want that. I buy people's books. I buy friends' books. That's what I do. Because that's what you're selling it for a reason, So happy to do that, and you can order it now.
It's $4.99. I've priced it to sell. I've priced it to make it accessible to the reader, and it comes out 2 days before the draft.
You
can read it on your flight to Kansas City, and it's a quick read. You'll be engrossed. Got a good review recently. I was very happy about that, and we're trying to get people to pre-order now. If it were me, I wouldn't pre-order something that's an ebook, because I could die between now and then, and I've wasted my $5. That's just the way I'm wired. Fortunately, not everybody's wired that way, and people have been pre-ordering.
That's a very Kyle Shanahan way of putting it. My gosh. And so what comes out first, Father of Mine or Aaron Rodgers as a Jet?
Probably Father of Mine and Aaron Rodgers as a Jet. And I would put very long odds. I'd say it's minus 5,800 against Aaron Rodgers reading Father of Mine.
Well, you can't
Although he's a reader. I don't think I'm going to make it into his book club.
I was about to say, you can't put an ebook behind you when you're on television. You can't do that. So
if I'd done it under a pseudonym, there's a chance he'd read it, and there's a chance he'd like it.
By Adam Schefter. There you go. Okay, very good. You take care, Mike. You be well, brother. Thanks, that's the great Mike Florio. Father of Mine. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.